There's something different about driving through Michigan's Upper Peninsula after dark. The highways become ribbons of black cutting through endless forest. Cell services fade. The nearest porch light might be 10 miles away, and then someone tells you to turn down a lonely gravel road near a tiny place called Paulding. Park here. Face the valley. Wait. Eventually a tiny light appears. It flickers and it changes colors. Sometimes it seems to move toward you. Sometimes it disappears. Thousands of people have watched it. Some swear it's a ghost. Others say it's impossible. Science says it already knows the answer, but does it? Today we're heading deep into Michigan's western Upper Peninsula near the unincorporated town of Paulding, Michigan, to explore one of Midwest's most famous paranormal legends, the Paulding Light. Welcome to another file in Midwest Shadow Files. I'm Dan, your host and Midwest Shadow Files storyteller. If you've never been to Michigan's Upper Peninsula, it's difficult to explain just how remote it feels. The UP stretches for more than 300 miles. Nearly a third of the land is public forest. Entire towns have only a few dozen residents, and the western UP feels especially isolated. Near the Wisconsin border sits Paulding, an unincorporated community so small you could drive through it without realizing you have arrived. Nearby are places like Waters Meet, Bruce Crossing, and Rockland. These aren't tourist cities, they're logging towns, mining towns, snowmobile towns, communities where everyone knows everyone. Long winters, deep woods, generations of stories. And is exactly the kind of place where legends survive. Interestingly, the Paulding Light isn't some centuries-old native legend. The first documented modern sighting wasn't until 1966, when several teenagers reported seeing a mysterious light in a valley near what is now Robbins Pond Road. The report spread quickly, and local law enforcement investigated, but no clear explanation emerged. Soon everyone had a story. Every family seemed to know someone who had seen it. People began making nighttime trips. Some saw one light, others saw three. Some claimed it floated, others said it bounced. Many insisted it changed from white to red to green before vanishing into the darkness. That's when the folklore began growing. And like every good ghost story, there wasn't just one explanation. The most famous story involved a railroad brakeman. According to legend, many years ago, a railroad employee train was racing toward disaster. Rail cars had become stranded on the tracks. A railroad employee grabbed his lantern and desperately waved it to stop the approaching locomotive. He failed. A train struck. The brakeman was killed. Now, his ghost continues waving the lantern, night after night. Still trying to warn trains that no longer exist. It's a beautiful story. There's only one problem. There were never railroad tracks in the valley. Historians have searched, maps have been checked. The tracks simply weren't there. However, that didn't stop the legend. Other stories emerged. Some claimed the light belonged to a mail carrier murdered while crossing the swamp. Others said it was the spirit of a Native American searching the woods. One version tells of a grandfather wandering forever with a lantern looking for a missing grandchild. Each generation added another chapter, because that's how folklore works. Facts matter less than stories people want to tell. If you visit today, you'll drive down Robbins Pond Road to a designated viewing area, and as darkness settles, people gather. Families, ghost hunters, curious tourists, college students. Someone always jokes, "Watch. Nothing's gonna happen tonight." Then someone points, "There!" A tiny white light appears, then another. And of course, sometimes it's red, orange, sometimes they shimmer, sometimes they dance. If you don't know what you're looking at, it feels impossible. The light seems suspended over the valley, not on the ground, not in the sky, just floating. Television crews came. Paranormal investigators came. Shows like Unsolved Mysteries and Ripley's Believe It or Not featured the phenomena, helping cement its reputation as one of America's classic ghost lights. And for decades, nobody could explain it, until Michigan Tech offered an explanation right after this. Hey there, Dan here. Just wanted to take a moment to give you a glimpse into our Wednesday episode. A question was asked about some of the haunted ghost stories related to colleges in Iowa. And boy, do we have some. Actually, you could probably do an episode on each college in the Midwest. They all seem to have 1 or 2 or even 3 ghost stories with them. So with Iowa colleges, we'll give you some of the stories and even point to other episodes covering some of the famous college stories surrounding ghosts. And of course, we're going to finally go to another story with our Bigfoot story, taking you down to the state of Missouri, telling you the story of Momo, or better known as the Missouri Monster, Missouri's Bigfoot, coming next week. But for now, let's get back to today's story, the Paulding Light. Questions and theories gave explanation to what the Paulding Light was, and folklore began to offer different accounts as well. Then came Michigan Tech University. In 2010, a student team from the Society of Photo-Optical Instrumentation Engineers decided to investigate. Instead of asking, could this be paranormal, they asked, what exactly are we seeing? They brought telescopes, spectrographs, GPS equipment, maps, atmospheric data. What they discovered surprised almost everyone. Looking through a telescope, they could actually make out cars, headlights, brake lights, even road signs. The mysterious light matched traffic traveling on a section of U.S. Highway 45 about 4.5 to 5 miles away. Under the right atmospheric conditions, especially temperature inversions, the distant headlights were refracted and distorted, making them appear to hover, change brightness, and even shift colors. The team recreated the phenomena by driving vehicles along the highway and matching what observers saw from the viewing area. In other words, the ghost light was likely a real optical illusion. Not fake, not imagined, just physics. But here's where the story gets interesting. Many visitors accepted the explanation, but others didn't. Some locals insist the Michigan Tech team explained one set of lights, but not every light. You'll find countless first-hand stories from people who say they've seen glowing orbs much closer than the distant highway, or lights behaving in ways they believe don't match vehicle traffic. These accounts, they say, offer no scientific consensus that they represent a separate phenomena altogether. Science can explain what was measured. Folklore fills in what people feel they experienced. Those two ideas don't always satisfy the same audience. The Paulding Light isn't alone. In fact, America is filled with mysterious lights. The Marfa lights, for example, in Marfa, Texas, population 1,574, perhaps the most famous, people report glowing balls of light drifting across the desert. Scientific explanations include distant vehicle headlights, atmospheric refraction, and temperature inversions as well, but the legend remains a major attraction. Then you have Brown Mountain lights in North Carolina, near towns Morganton, population 17,000, Jonas Ridge, 322, Linville Falls, population 283, and then of course Little Switzerland, population 46. Reports date back hundreds of years. Witnesses describe floating orbs rising from the mountain ridges. Theories include vehicle lights, atmospheric effects, marsh gases, and of course, electrical phenomena. Then you have the Gurdon Light, down in Arkansas. The legend centers on a railroad worker. People claim a floating lantern still patrols abandoned tracks. And then you have the Hornet Spook Light on the border of Missouri and Oklahoma, known simply as the Spook Light. A glowing orb appears along a rural road. Scientists have proposed, again, distant headlights, while others remain convinced it's something stranger. And finally, you have the Saratoga lights near Saratoga, Texas. Another ghost lantern. Another railroad story. Another mysterious glow. Sound familiar? It turns out many ghost light legends develop around railroads, lanterns, lonely roads, and of course, isolated communities. Why do we love ghost lights? There's something uniquely human about lights in the darkness. Before electricity, a light usually meant another person, safety, home. So when people saw unexplained lights, they naturally imagined someone carrying them. Even when science explains many of these lights, the stories rarely disappear. Sometimes the legends serve cultural purposes beyond explaining physical events. They connect communities to place, to history, and most importantly, they connect people to one another. And maybe that's the real mystery of the Paulding Light. Not whether it's paranormal, but why generations continue making the drive. Standing quietly beside strangers, watching the darkness, hoping, just hoping, that tonight they'll see something impossible. Because whether it's a ghost, a trick of the atmosphere, or simply distant headlights bending through layers of cool Upper Peninsula air, for a few minutes, everyone is looking into the same darkness, wondering. Just wondering, and maybe that's enough. If you've ever visited the Paulding Light or another mysterious light in your hometown, I want to hear your story. Sometimes the best Midwest stories aren't about proving a legend true or false. They're about the people who keep showing up year after year, because a little mystery is worth preserving. Until next time, this episode was written, recorded, and produced by me, myself, and I'm Dan, your host and Midwest Shadow Files storyteller. And this is Midwest Shadow Files.